Good afternoon, Ollie.
Hi, David.
Welcome to the channel. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed today for the blog.
No problem. Happy to help.
It's great to have you here. To introduce Oliver, Oliver Matovu is a business strategy consultant who helps to advise business leaders and investors on their commercial decisions, helping businesses and business people to rekindle their fire. Ollie enrolled on the accredited diploma in transformative coaching back in 2023, following a period of ill health, which led to a quarter life crisis and the consequent realization that he is now ideally placed to coach and support other young people who are also going through quarter life crises of their own. I met Ollie at a Coaches on Cage lecture, and we have since connected through the Animas community and had several conversations about the benefits of coaching for young people and of the challenges that the next generation are facing. So I'm delighted to welcome you to the channel, Ollie, and would like to start by asking you what led you to deciding to train as a coach?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a up and down journey, to be honest, that got me to coaching. Unfortunately, I got quite ill in January 2023. I had a manic psychotic episode, and that really disrupted my life quite significantly. And it took me a while to kind of form a new narrative of who I was and how much I could contribute to my job. And I came across coaching at a lower point in my time, and it really kind of rekindled my fire, my energy when I realized that actually I could take what was a negative experience and transform that to help other people. And that really, you mentioned the words rekindle your fire. Well, I think that happened to me when I started to lock on to the idea that I could coach other people and share my experiences and guide other people. And so I came across Animas through a friend of a friend. And yeah, from there, it's been a really great journey.
Glad to hear it. I'm curious, what were you expecting of the course, and how did kind of the reality compare to your expectations? What was it like being a trainee with Animats?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely exceeded my expectations, that's for sure. It was a really good complement to where I was in life in terms of recovery from illness, because you get coached a lot as part of the process as well as coaching other people. And so I really found that complemented that stage I was in life, and that made a really big impact. Sorry, yeah, I guess you talked about my expectations going into it. I guess I didn't have a really preset idea of what it would look like. But what was really nice is that you're in a community of sort of 12 people consistently throughout the process, and you'd meet once every month for 6 months. And there was a really nice continuity to it and a really nice group. And Nishi, the person who led the course, was really great at bringing everyone into the fray. So it really did exceed my expectations in terms of actually making good friends as part of the course, but also learning lots about the power of coaching and how it can inspire people.
Right, Holly. I'm curious as to, are there any realizations or insights you had about yourself and your journey as you were training to be a coach and, sitting in the seat of a client lots and lots, as well as being a coach, because you get loads of coaching as well as give loads of coaching as part of training.
Yeah, there were lots of moments. One that springs to mind is a session I was being coached on where I was trying to formulate my ideas of how I'd shifted the way I approach life, from a force mindset into a flow mindset. So before I was ill, I was full of energy, um, and full of ambition as well. And to be honest, at times you would decide where you want to be and force your way through that. And when you have the well springs of energy and everything like that, it's easier to do that. I think since getting unwell, I've had to tap more into a flow mindset of seeing where life is taking you and flowing with that, and not pushing as much against the grain, but sort of tapping into your intuition, I would say, which is what, when you slow down, you can actually be in a more state of flow and flow with life. And actually that can bring a lot of opportunity. You might not know exactly where you're going, but it's brought a lot of opportunity, such as coaching, to me. So I remember having a really good, deep coaching conversation about force versus flow and how that was impacting my life.
Mm. I wanted to ask you how your experiences, highs and lows, positives, negatives, kind of all of it. How your experiences, kind of pre the course and on the course, have helped you to help others through your coaching, who might be finding themselves in a similar journey or having some overlaps from their journey to your own.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of clients that I've worked with have also struggled with illness as part of their journey, and it's hard because you have this point in your life where you suddenly the new narratives and the new way your body operates no longer serves you, and there's a painful process of shedding the old mindset and the old narratives and the old way your body operates and embracing a new way of living. And I think having been through that journey myself, I, through coaching, can better guide others to do the same and at least relate with them. I mean, the power of coaching is the fact that you don't need to have exactly the same experience, and illness affects people very differently. But to have at least a framework of understanding how I navigated it and how it can be navigated better was really helpful. So it's definitely helped impact my coaching work. But I'd say also outside of that, it's a really powerful skill set to just use in ordinary life circumstances, like with friends who are struggling or friends that are doing well. Actually, coaching allows you to formulate questions in certain ways, pay a certain sort of special attention to people that really ignites their thinking and can help them to solve their own problems. And I've definitely used coaching skills a lot outside of just a coaching context.
Mm. Thanks, Holly. I'm wondering, you referred a couple of times in your answers there about um, the narrative, kind of the old narrative, the new narrative. I understand we're talking about the internal narrative, and I just wondered, for anyone listening who's not quite sure what those terms mean, if we could just sort of define what in your words, what does the new narrative, old narrative mean to you? What are we referring to?
Yeah, I guess to take it personally, before I got unwell, I was doing really well at work. Everything was, uh, going well. I had this sort of probably play hard, work hard mentality that many in the city have. And, uh, I got a lot of positive affirmation from that doing well at work, uh, you know, whatever doing well in a social context means. But, play hard, work hard was working for me. And that was the narrative that I was operating under, if I use narrative in that sense. Uh, After getting unwell and having a psychotic manic episode, a lot changes. And one of the things is your energy levels are up and down, your mood levels are up and down. Um, it was a new set of challenges, and really work hard, play hard, which is a sort of gung ho mentality, doesn't really fit into that mold. Uh, and suddenly I didn't have the same positive affirmation from those things that I previously did. And because those narratives are set over a period of time, it can be a painful process to shed them. And I had to go through illness to really shed some of that achievement mindset that was part of my narrative before, and find a new way to integrate who I was, basically.
It's interesting you mentioned the work hard, play hard. I think a lot of people wear that as well as busyness as like a badge of honor. It's celebrated and often rewarded as well. People get promotions and things. Work hard, play hard. But I I know that there's a lot of risks around burning the candle at both ends and things like burnout. And I'm wondering, how how have you found a better balance in the context of, if there's someone listening that's in the thick of play hard, work hard, and is thinking, well, it's okay to say that there's another way, but what else could I do instead of work hard, play hard? How can someone come out of that system and that feedback loop?
Mm. I mean, it's certainly easier said than done and takes time and is still a work in progress. But I think a lot of it comes down to being a bit more intentional with how you spend your time and how you know that's going to impact on your body and your situation. So it's taking the time to really think, well, what's a balanced portfolio of work and life together, and be more intentional about that. And for me, there are things I picked up like yoga and meditation. They just give more balance into your life, more time to slow down, I think. So particularly morning routines and evening routines for me have been a bit more sacred spaces to actually take time out, slow down. And I think in those spaces, that's when your deeper intuitions have a chance to rise up, and you can really pick out um, life decisions in a more reasoned, balanced way, rather than just really functioning just on the adrenaline and the positive affirmation and everything going well. You actually are taking more time to make the right choices for your life and build more of, I'd say, a balanced portfolio, really.
I've heard the concept of work-life harmony battered around as a like a replacement and an upgrade of work-life balance. And it's saying that looks sometimes, work is going to take priority and there's going to be long days and maybe even a bit of weekend work and things. But so long as work overall is working for you, and then you are able to, make work and life kind of complement each other. It's like a different way of looking at work-life balance rather than thinking every day at 5 p.m. I want to switch off and come home and then be, because even if we do that, we still find ourselves thinking about work, pondering work. I find it impossible to just switch gears completely from like work to not work.
Yeah, I actually specifically like that word harmony. It's something that I brought into my coaching, actually, the word harmony, because I really like it. It's got that musical analogy for things being in tune, things chiming on the same chord. And I think really when I talked about going from force to flow, I think harmony really embraces that. Is actually taking the time to think about whether that activity or that person or that situation is in tune with your your higher self or your new way of being. And actually it's enabled me to say no to certain things that are out of tune in a way that I would have just gone straight for them in the past. So I really like that word harmony. Really, the musical analogy really works well.
It feels like you've really dialed up your intuition there, and are really able to kind of speak from listen to your gut, listen to your heart, rather than thinking, well, from a purely practical, just speaking from the head point of view, I'll try and do it all because it'll be great if I get it all done. But then from a heart and kind of gut perspective, thinking, well, that's not really going to serve me because I'm potentially going to burn myself out doing that. So being able to notice and I guess balance like those conflicting forces within us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And harmony embraces that. And it's not just thinking about what is harmonic, it's also thinking about the opposite, what things are discordant and strike the wrong tone with your body. And if you don't take that time out to slow down and make decisions with a bit more intention, you sometimes can get yourself out of kilter. And that's unfortunately which leads some or many people to burnout in the city. And it's something that I've encountered with my coaching clients that have really burnt themselves out, and it takes time to reset and reconfigure. But if people can do that earlier and avoid burnout, that would obviously be amazing. And so there's got to be a whole series of coaching around sort of more preventative measures that lead people not to burn out in the first place.
And not, speaking of sort of burnout, I'm wondering, I know that burnout potentially for me was an element of what I would describe as my 20s. I describe them as a bit of a quarter life crisis. And I really love that phrase. And it's not one I've managed to, I've had the privilege of discussing it on the channel. So I'd love to invite you to introduce what do we mean by a quarter life crisis, and how is it different from, say, a midlife crisis?
Yeah, I think it's a trend that I'm seeing, at least in friends or friends of friends, that there's a point more in your quarter life, in your 20s and 30s, where people suddenly look back and go, hang on a second, how did I end up here? Why am I here? What do I really want? Do I want this? So there's these big questions that crop up after people have had their classic grad job out of uni or something like that. And really, it's a feeling of directionlessness. Like, which way do I want to go? And people often don't know quite how to navigate that. And sometimes, actually the right thing that serves them is to quit the job, take some time out. Maybe it's to travel, maybe it's to figure things out and actually take a new course, try something new. But it's a combination, I think, of directionlessness and meaninglessness. I think there's a bit of a crisis of meaning at the moment in society, and the quarter life crisis plays a bit into that.
Mm, I agree. I really resonate with it. I mean, yeah, after university, I kind of fell into IT as I left university thinking, well, I now know what I don't want to do, and spent 11 years working in an IT career, which was often very fulfilling. But then one day kind of had like an awakening of everyone around me is like heading full speed towards a destination, and I'm not sure it's where I want to be headed to, and thinking I've got to get off this. I've got to go. I need to follow a different path. But like many of us, not really having any of the answers about. I know, I don't want this, but I don't know what I do want. So for me, that led to traveling around the world for a year on my own, backpacking, and starting to find some of those answers from within. But again, until it's a bit of a chicken and egg analogy. Until you try something new, you don't necessarily know how it's going to feel and how it's going to fit you. So it's been a my journey has been a bit of a, well, I'll try it and see, and kind of learn from it, grow from it, and go from there. And that's been wonderful to have a coach at that time. I'm wondering how you can relate, maybe with yourself or your clients, to that approach.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was in my mind is, again, it's back to this force versus flow scenario. There's a beautiful analogy or story in a book that I've read, where it talks about a world of little creatures that are all clinging to the edge with the tide kind of coming through and washing them down. They're constantly in this mode of resistance, clinging on to where they are in the river. And actually, one of these creatures decides, actually, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to let go, and let the tide sweep me up. And everyone says, you're crazy, you're crazy. And they let go, and they might get hit around a bit, but then suddenly they're in the stream of the current and it's taking them along. And I think it kind of relates to a bit of what you've been saying about that leap that you need to take when you feel stuck and you're in this mode of resistance and you know things need to change, but you're just hanging on. It's that letting go and actually allowing the tide of life to take you into new and interesting encounters. And you don't quite know how that's going to look or feel. But if you're in that state of being able to flow with life and use your intuition to sense your way through things, I think you get a bit closer to the destination of who you are and what you want to be in the world. If you're able to kind of use your sense and intuition to guide you, you might not always make the right turns, but you're constantly readjusting to get there. Whereas I guess the alternative of the force mentality I was talking before just says, right, I'm in consulting. I'm just gonna put my head down and work hard, play hard. And suddenly you might get up and have this quarter life or midlife crisis because you haven't been sensing from inside yourself about what feels and sort of is in tune with you. And that obviously evolves and changes over time. But that's how I think the concepts of flow and harmony and this quarter life crisis all come together. It's quite a nice little story in this book called Illusions.
I love that analogy, and I was smiling as you said. I had that image of that little creature kind of jumping off the cliff rather than hanging on to some slimy rope, something. And what came to mind for me straight away was, wow, that sounds a bit like the journey of building a business. You just, when you lean into it, people rightly say, well, what do you know about building a business? You haven't built a business before. And you're like, yep, correct. And I'm going to do it anyway. And there's just so many times, I think so many cliff faces you're kind of clinging on to. And then it's only when you let go of them and kind of let go with the tide a little bit, you start to realize, well, I'm not the only one letting go, because there's a load of other people out there doing it as well. But what I thought I knew then is actually not as true as I thought it was. And kind of coaching helps with like picking away at all of those assumptions and things you were holding on to for dear life, and letting them go, or at least loosening your grip a little bit.
Yeah, loosening your grip and becoming curious about all those things. Because even the resistance, right? When you feel resistance, because maybe there's resistance to making that leap or resistance to something, actually, it's being curious. Like, where does that resistance come from? Why am I feeling that? Is there, and giving it some validity. Maybe there is a reason as to why this isn't the right thing. There's something inside of me that's resisting. But it all comes back to being more self-aware, I guess. And I think the process of being coached and coaching others helps to really foster your awareness and helps you to notice more, which is really empowering.
So I'm curious, Oliver, what would you say to someone that's listening who's maybe saying, right, okay, I'm in my 20s or 30s, I'm in my quarter life, and I've had this kind of awakening and this feeling of, oh my goodness, I've I've been in this career for a long time, I'm doing really well, got lots of feedback from people, but it's like there's something missing and something's not feeling right, and I'm panicking because I feel like I've, as friends once said to me, you've made your bed, now you have to lie in it. And that's a really scary feeling, as though you're kind of locked in place and you can't wriggle free. And if you were to say leave your career, you'd be throwing it all away. So if someone's encountering all of those feelings of, oh my goodness, what on earth do I do? Where do I start? What would you advise, or what would you do with them if they became a coaching client of yours?
Yeah, I think that hopefully the first thing that would help to reassure them is that they're not alone. Like it's a very common thing that people go through to have that sort of quarter life crisis and that moment of saying like, what am I doing? What am I really doing? Am I in the right place? So it's that kind of reassurance that, this is actually often the murmurings of transformation. This is the murmurings of something that takes you to a higher plane in your existence often when you start to feel and ask yourself these questions. Um, I think a big one would be to just slow down, like have a breather, find a way to, going back to this balanced portfolio, find a way to have time in your week where you really slow down and you start to listen to the voice inside of you to know actually how to navigate this course. But also you don't need to make big leaps all at once. It doesn't have to be that little creature jumping into the sea or the river. Actually, you can do things in bits, so you can have some ideas of potential things that would give you more energy and more life force, but prototype them. So find small ways in which you can test out certain ideas or certain, where maybe they're business ideas or other jobs that you might be interested in making a switch to. Try and find prototypes and sit with them and think about them and think about where that life would lead you. You don't have to make a big leap all at once. So I think definitely slowing down and prototyping some other options is a really good way to start learning and listening to your intuitions about where you need to go next, basically. And coaching is a wonderful complement to that journey if they are there, to really help you to reflect and think about what next.
Thanks, Ollie. And if they just specifically on prototyping, if, for example, they're in I don't know, a marketing role and they're thinking, well, I'd love to leave this and actually run my own business, maybe go into business consulting, a bit like yourself. But I don't know because I'm working full time. What do you mean by prototyping? What could I do? What could I try to just find out? Taste the waters of an alternative life.
Yeah, I guess in that example, if business consulting is what they're considering, it might be that they could find some pro bono um, consulting opportunities out there where people offer their time for free to help startups or charities, um, to help guide them. And it might be that there's a way in which they can find a small taster of what the life of consulting could be like before they decide to scrap the marketing job. Or it could be that there's a little business venture they're going down more the entrepreneurship and route that they could build up on the side, um, to like help them to figure out if this is really feeling like them or not. So those are kind of a couple of examples of just trying to not make it seem like it's this big thing where I have to shift the whole job and test the whole job before I can make a decision. Actually, there are small things I can do alongside what I'm doing. And it might be that you have a frank conversation with your employer and say, actually, um, I'm in a period of flux at the moment. I could really do with stepping down to 3 days a week for a period of time or taking a sabbatical. And in those moments, again, that gives you more time to test things out before you make the big leap.
I love that, and I really resonated with it. As it is, that the message there for me, which I entirely agree with and would echo, is that there's always another way. There's always another path. There's always another option, and it doesn't have to be big bang. It can be gradual. It can involve, hopefully, a fantastic conversation like that with their employer. And there's always so many opportunities that we aren't available when we're feeling backed into a corner against a wall, feeling like almost analysis paralysis, not knowing which way to turn. And again, shout out to coaching with someone like yourself can be really helpful to have someone to kick a few of those ideas around with, and maybe to lean into one, give it a try and see what you learn. And even if it's, oh, I've tried it and I know for sure 100% that is not the path for me, you've still gained because you've learned something, you've found something out, and you've realized, well, if I've done it once, I could go do it again and repeat the process and just keep chipping away at it until you find what does feel right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the compliment with coaching. I completely agree with that because in a way, there are times you can try and sit with a journal and solve your own problems, but it's amazing what I've seen the power of coaching to provide this thinking container for someone to really um, ignite their thinking and kind of solve things in a way they didn't expect or find realizations, deep realizations that they didn't realize were part of that package of issues is amazing. So I really think coaching is a wonderful thinking container that when you're going through um, these murmurings of transformation that are really helpful.
Speaking of the power of coaching, I wanted to ask you how coaching is complementing your role as a working as a business strategy consultant.
Yeah, I think they're really complementary skill sets, to be honest. And both, when you're a manager at a consulting firm, you've got three groups of stakeholders, really. You've got clients, you've got the partners in your firm, and you've got the junior team that you're managing. And I think, particularly when you're working with a junior team, coaching is a skill set that really transforms the way you kind of approach those interactions. So it's really about empowering and getting the most out of people beneath you and asking certain open questions, giving space for them to do the thinking, do the solving, that I think is real complement to consulting and the way that we operate. Because there's definitely a version of being a manager that is micromanaging and telling exactly what specifically and trying to drive the thinking for them instead of empower their own thinking. And I think when you opt for the empower their own thinking and coaching is a skill set that helps you to do that, you can achieve a lot more. So it's really powerful for dealing with the junior team, but also with clients. I think it's just that active listening that really enables you to figure out where is the crux of their issue. What are they really struggling with, or what do they really view as important? You have that noticing ability to see where those energy shifts happen, and you learn that from a coaching context, and you'll be familiar with that. That there's sometimes that the penny just drops, and you can miss those moments if you're not really paying a lot of attention and presence and listening. So, again, with all stakeholders in the consulting context, the skill sets of active listening, noticing, open questioning, presence are really powerful and empowering.
It really sounds like coaching has complemented your role, and training to be a coach wasn't a way of getting out of what you're doing for a living, as it wasn't for me. It was a way of seeing, I'm going to lean into this, I'm going to cultivate some more communication skills, and then that's naturally going to benefit what I do, and potentially in unexpected ways, and have a bit of a ripple effect even through the team or the organization.
I think it was definitely an area where I had, where the coaching experience exceeded my expectations. I think I ventured into coaching when I was at a sort of, I guess, slightly low point in my life after illness and when things weren't clicking. And actually, going through the coaching experience and that journey has opened up a lot of fruit in my life. And I've realized that actually that journey complements the journey I was on before rather than them being different journeys. And so I think you're absolutely right. There's a real complement to those two things.
I wanted to ask you a specific question that I think you're really well placed to answer. I found when I lent into coaching, one of the sort of limiting beliefs I had around coaching was you need to be of a certain age to train as a coach. And I know that you have a position of significant responsibility at work, and you're dealing with stakeholders and people who no doubt have been in business a lot longer than we have, but you're there in a position of responsibility, maybe even senior to them now. And then, from the perspective as training as a coach, I've obviously found that it's not true that you need to have 30 plus experience in business to be able to become a coach. But if people are listening and thinking, oh, well, people have said, I'm worried about training as a coach because I'm maybe in my early 20s and I'm worried that I'm a bit too young and maybe it's something for 10 or 15 years' time. I'm wondering what your experience has been of being a coach and marketing yourself as a coach as someone who is, probably quite quite young on the average age range for coaches.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of a pinch point. It's something that I was thinking through as I decided to embark on coaching. Am I just too young? But I think it's similar to consulting, where there really is a skill set of doing coaching well, and you don't need to have the background of knowing, being in their industry, going through their problems in order to execute that skill set effectively and lead them to find realizations and knowledge and solutions within themselves. So I think really good coaching doesn't really need to have that relationship. However, a big part of the coaching job and the thing that makes it so powerful is the rapport you can build with a client. And sometimes age is relevant to that. And there are some people for whom I'm 27. If they're 45 and in a certain area of their life, maybe that rapport isn't going to be the thing that opens up new possibilities in their life. So there is still a sort of matchmaking process that actually having some experience you can relate with and be empathetic to is a factor. And so that might just help you to decide where you niche down initially. So I'm looking to work, for instance, with young people going through quarter life crises. That's where I've decided to start. It may not be where I finish, but those are the sorts of groups of people that I know that I can work with, relate well with, and empower. And all I'd say is if you're interested in coaching later down in life, why not start the journey of learning that skill set now? You don't have to make it a big part of your life or your income right now, but you can start to sow the seeds of that skill set and build it up over time. And that means that when you're in your mid 40s, you'll have already had 15 years of experience, working with these problems and issues and trying out that skill set. So it's definitely something I see for the future, that coaching could become a bigger part of what I do. But for now, it just sits as a complement.
I agree, and I really loved your explanation there and the way you framed it. And I knew you'd have a great answer, having been from the world of business consultancy as well. So thank you. I think I would add that it's important to acknowledge that as coaches, we're not imparting our wisdom from several decades of experience, which is mentoring by definition. We are, say to my clients who are solopreneurs, who often are a bit older than me and they've been running a business for a lot longer than I have. I'll say, I am absolutely not here to tell you how to run your business, but what I will do is hold a space and facilitate your thinking so that together we can, you know, come up with a plan, a strategy, some actions, move things forward. But you're in the driving seat, you're leading. Look, just like you're leading your business, you're leading the session right now. And what I'm doing is creating and holding the space for us to have this conversation with the full knowledge. The elephant in the room is completely out. That you're more experienced than me, and you know a lot more about business than me. So for me, it was just getting really clear on the definition and the contracting piece to be able to coach clients that are a little bit or a lot older than I am.
Yeah, and it still works like that. I have coached a couple of people that are older, in their sort of early 40s, for instance, and the the coaching container still provides a really good space for them to think through their problems, and it's actually really good. I'd really encourage anyone that goes down the coaching journey to experiment coaching with different people and seeing which issues resonate. It's not necessarily the obvious one that is the one that takes off. And I don't know, in your case, David, whether solopreneur was the thing that you knew you were going to go down. I expect not. But there's a way in which you suddenly start to resonate with the way that those people think, the issues that they go through, the space that you know that you can hold. That means actually that's a really good spark. So I would really encourage to try, coaching a variety of different people before you really decide to niche down in a particular area.
Definitely. And that leads on really well to the next question. You gave us earlier a little glimpse of kind of what you're planning for the future, what you're hoping to do. I wondered if I could ask you what sort of clients do you enjoy working with, and what are you hoping to do? What impact are you hoping to have in the future with your coaching?
Yeah, I've noticed this is again the benefit of working with lots of different people. I've noticed that I particularly enjoy working with people that are really looking to transform their lives rather than just make incremental change. And I've noticed that there's a couple of people that have gone through illness where that really is a kicker and it forces you to need to transform your life. And I really like working with clients that are really looking for big change and really are going through big changes in their own lives. So for me, that it's biasing myself to those kind of people rather than people that are just looking for incremental change, people that are really going through what might be called a quarter life crisis, particularly one that inspired from a health or mental health drop, which is what I've been through. I think illness is often one of those things that if it doesn't break you, it can make you stronger. And helping to guide people through that is what I really see as um, the niche I want to hold for now.
It's a huge shout out to coaching people that are going through something that's relatable. And the solopreneurs, for me, it's so similar. It has so many crossovers to solo travelers and solo traveling, and that experience of leaning into this journey, not knowing what the destination is, not knowing where you're going to go and how it's going to go, but knowing for sure that there's going to be obstacles on the way, and there's also going to be some wins, and there's going to be some fantastic moments in there, as well as some crushing lows, really high highs, really low lows. And that for me was the experience of solo travel, and has been so far the experience of building a business and being a solopreneur myself. And what I say to my clients is, hey, I'm a work in progress as well. I'm working through this stuff just like you are. And even though you might be earning 10 times more a month than me, we're still coming up against the same challenges, because a lot of it, 80-90% of it, is internal, and we're still battling against these internal forces. And it's, for me, it's helping them like to sort of bring this like internal storm kind of start to settle it down a little bit, so that they can see the wood for the trees and they can think a bit more clearly, and then that has a positive ripple effect on the business. So it doesn't really matter what their business is and what sector they're in and what they're earning. What I'm most interested in, and what I can relate to and I enjoy coaching them about, is like the internal piece.
Yeah, and for me, the coaching journey with a quarter life crisis actually is it's a lot of the concepts I was talking about earlier about flow, harmony, tapping into your intuition. Actually, it's pulling people out of their situation and saying, actually take the leap, try and be that creature that takes the leap a little bit, and it is into more of engaging their intuition, listening to themselves, slowing down, prototyping various options, and really tapping into that higher self of where you could go next, and see illness not as just something that's a painful thing to navigate, but something that is a wellspring of opportunity and new narratives to form. So yeah, the idea of flow, harmony in my own life does really relate to how I end up coaching people that are going through those problems themselves.
Mm. I wondered if specific if there's someone listening who's thinking of embarking on the Animas course, but thinking, maybe they've had a bit of a journey with illness or mental health, as so many of us have, and they're thinking, I'm not sure if it's the right time for me to do this course. I'm not sure if it's going to be for me, and just having a few doubts and fears about that. If there's anything from your experience that you just share with them about to help them make a more informed decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly obviously something to think about. Are you, in a stable enough place to make the investment in a new course and a new thing right? That's definitely a consideration. But what I would say is coaching is a real complement to going through something that's difficult in your life. You're going to be coached through the process and learn a new skill set that really empowers your thinking. So I would say actually, the right headspace is not necessarily I've completely resolved every single problem in my life. I'm now ready for coaching, actually, to train as to be a coach. actually it's a really good complement as you're coming out and you're bearing new shoots in your life, that it can help to complement that. So um, I would really encourage, unless you really are, you know, in the severe part of your illness and recovering, that actually, if you're at the phase where new shoots are forming and you're starting to get back to your best, it can be a really beautiful time to do and train as a coach.
Thanks, Ollie. Um, I wondered, just sort of to start to wrap up, I just wondered, we know that coaching isn't a cure for anything. It's not a fix, a quick fix. It's not designed to come in and solve any problems. But I just wondered kind of what you would describe, how you would describe coaching, kind of the impact that coaching has had on you through like your journey with mental health, as you said, as we know it's not a cure, but it is, like, for me personally, it's just helped me to make a lot of links and to suddenly a lot of stuff internally over time has started to make a lot of sense to me. So it's sort of brought a lot of those jigsaw pieces together around why I do what I do, some of the patterns I've found myself in, like repeating patterns, and that's enabled me to now make more informed decisions through a better understanding of self. I was just wondering what your experience has been.
Sorry, David, my connection was a bit bitty in that moment. Do you mind just
Yeah,
repeating
yeah, no
the
problem.
question, because I
Just
got
in
most
terms
of
of,
it?
you know, coaching isn't a cure, and I was wondering just what the impact coaching has had on you being coached through your journey with mental health.
Mm, yeah, I mean, a pretty big impact, to be honest. It's helped me to put down overthinking about things. It's helped me to uh, leap away from the old narrative and into one of flow and intuition. Um, it's really, I don't know, supported me to um, take the time I need to kind of move through illness. Uh, it's it's hard to really sometimes pinpoint or articulate exactly, exactly in which ways that's manifested, but it's really opened up my outlook to sort of seeing challenges as opportunities. I know that's a really sort of coffee mug phrase, but um, when you're struggling with mental health, that's often a really big pivot where you can to be able to view challenge as opportunity and really go for it is a really big hurdle to overcome. And coaching, the fact that coaching is able to facilitate that process has been amazing. So it's enabled me to um, get back into a thriving mentality, which has been yeah, I'm really grateful for.
It's fantastic. If someone's listening and they're really interested in you, would like to get in touch, find out more, possibly you might be able to help them get back into a thriving mentality. What would you recommend them do? How can they find you?
How can they find me? At the moment, my my marketing is pretty poor, so I haven't yet decided to go full throttle on building out the coaching business. But definitely, I can leave my contact details at the bottom of this video if people feel like they're going and resonate with the quarter life crisis, and would like to get in a place where they're feeling more in harmony with themselves, flowing with the tide of life, and rekindle the fire inside of them. Um, then yeah, please reach out. I'll leave my LinkedIn. I'll leave my maybe even WhatsApp number, Instagram, different ways in which people can find me if they're interested in doing some coaching. That'd be amazing.
Thanks, Ollie. It's very clear that you're having a very significant impact with your clients. And it feels like you're only scraping the surface at the moment of what you're going to do in the future with your coaching. So I really look forward to following that journey and keeping in touch and continuing our conversations that I really enjoy about these themes, um, and continuing to be a work in progress on all matters.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it's been a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for for your time, and it'd be wonderful to have you again.
Thanks, David. It's been a pleasure.